You don't build brand loyalty by putting like a smattering of things out because your customer won't know what you stand for as a brand.
Do you have a brilliant product idea but don't know where to start to get it made? Or are you looking to level up your product but afraid to take it overseas?
If so, you're in the right place. Hi, I'm Jackie.
And I'm Erin, and we are
The Sourcing Gals,
your trusted guides to everything you need to know about sourcing, manufacturing, and scaling your product overseas. Whether you are just starting out or you've been making your own product for a while, we are here to help women source products overseas without the overwhelm.
In each episode, we'll share insider tips, actionable strategies, and inspiring stories to help you source more effectively, save time, and boost your profits. Duh! We know how hard it can be to juggle the ins and outs of product development, but don't worry, we've got your back.
So grab a cup of coffee, get comfy, and let's dive into how you can grow your business,
make more money,
and turn your products into profit. Welcome to
The Sourcing Gals. Now let's get started. High five.
Hi.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of
The Sourcing Gals.
Today is a very exciting episode. We are going to talk about actually launching your product-based business and the different schools of thought for that, and the pros and the cons, and just some words of wisdom from us that have done it, multiple ways, to be honest. So we're going to talk about starting small, scaling smart, and how to approach this. So let's just dive right on into it. Today's episode, let's assume you've done your market research. You've taken your idea, you've gone into chat, you've asked it, what are my competitors look like? What's the white space opportunity? What's my differentiators? You looked at your price points, right? Let's pretend as if you've done all that work and you are feeling confident and ready to proceed to actually sampling goods and bulk production.
If this is new news, we did speak about this a few episodes back.
Correct.
So hop on back to the episode that is like, I have an idea, now what?
Yes. So assuming you've listened to that podcast, here you go. Step 2. Let's talk about 2 avenues of thoughts when it comes to going to market. So the first being how we start small. And we use a word called assortment. So Erin, do you want to explain when I say, what does your assortment look like? What does that mean?
So when I think of an assortment, I think about very well-established brands whose brand ID comes through a lot of different products, a lot of different fits in accessories, a lot of different product categories maybe. And so every little thing that they sell supports the overall brand image. Let me think of like a brand right now. If you think of the like Lululemon, sure, they started out with a legging, but now they have such a broad assortment, and everything in the assortment kind of goes back to that brand DNA and was built upon that one core product, which they did what we're going to recommend here. Spoiler alert.
Yep.
But the assortment is the overall collection of goods that you are selling.
Correct. So let's talk about assortment. When you have a product idea and you're going to market, there are many ways to bring it to life. How many choices? How many colors? How many fits? If you were starting from ground zero, what would be something that you would suggest when people are thinking about their assortment, their collection of product that they're going to be hosting, whether it's on a website, whether it's in a pop-up, like whatever, sales avenue, whatever channel they're using? What would be some recommendations in regards to assortment?
So I think back to what I just said in terms of the collection really mirroring the brand image. When you're brand new starting out, you don't have a brand image yet. People don't know, you don't have that brand loyalty. So the goal is to build it. And you don't build brand loyalty by putting like a smattering of things out because your customer won't know what you stand for as a brand unless it's like, you got to hit them over the head with it. Like, this is my brand. This is what I'm known for. This is what I do. And this is what I do well. So to do that well from the beginning, you would start out with like a singular, maybe, or like a very tight number of products. When I think of singular products, I think of people like Spanx, Sarah Blakely, she launched with a product.
Correct.
Even like Marine Layer, they launched with a t-shirt. They got really well known for a wonderful t-shirt. And Allbirds, that one shoe, like these brands started with something very small and built a customer following, built brand loyalty, and then were able to expand once they had a spot in the market. I'm going to give a real life example for me. This was a big learning experience. My first brand that I launched was called Grandiflora. It was a home goods brand, and I loved it. Every piece I loved, but there was not one piece that I was known for. It was just kind of like a home goods lifestyle brand assortment. And there wasn't one special reason someone would come to me versus someone else.
So you weren't necessarily finding that differentiator. It was things that you personally loved, but they weren't able to say that brand stands for X or stands for Y.
Correct.
So if you could go back in time, hit the restart button on your home decor biz, how would you relaunch it today?
I would start with just like one great thing that I did. And when I did launch the brand, I had maybe 3 cornerstone things. But I thought, oh, this isn't enough. People are going to think this looks piddly online. And I need more. I need more fluff. I need more stuff. I need to have a full website. So then I did all of these things, but really I should have started very narrow with the things I did very well and then built over time.
Correct. And I think as you are launching your new brand, starting to gain traction, gain more followers, gain more customers, that's going to give you even financially, the dollars to let you go and branch into new categories, right? Like I remember when I started with Piper and Mint, I had the vision for the full assortment, as most, startup founders do, right? You see where it's going to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now. But I knew that starting that way wasn't going to be feasible for many reasons, and even just financially, it didn't make financial sense to do it. Also, I had 0 followers. So, there's that too, right? There's the whole marketing side. So I made a point to say, okay, I'm going to launch with one product. I had a nursing tank and matching short. I had 1 pajama set. Now I did do 3 colors because I knew that one on a website, and that was my go-to-market strategy, was e-commerce, probably wasn't going to be enough. So I thought, okay, at least if I have 3 colors in my best at product, right? That's where I'm going to start. And
well, that's also, sorry to interrupt you. Yes, it's 3 colors, but it's 1 fit block.
Exactly.
It's 1 production, or I should say development route of discovery. It's
Correct.
1 factory.
Correct.
It's 1 type of fabric.
Correct.
You can use the same labels for everything, trims for everything. Like all the knowledge that you gained building that pajama set, you could use on multiple colors.
Yes.
So it's really using your dollars in a smart way.
Yep. And, in hindsight, there are definitely some things I learned and would do a little bit differently, but I was also really impressed and excited when I went to my first photo shoot to see how 3 sets of pajamas could really come to life in such a unique way, right? I had different size models, and right, my sizes range from extra small to 3XL. So it's a lot of women that I could have in just my 1 color of PJs, let alone I had 3 colors. So it really came to life, and the marketing piece was what helped build a little bit more brand behind just, saying I only have one pajama set, right? 1 silhouette. It really did help fill in and round out the website to feel more like a true brand, to be honest, even though I only had 3 SKUs that I was working with.
That was smart.
So learnings, though, however, from that too, in regards to starting small and scaling smart, I had a minimum fabric order, an MOQ, minimum order quantity, that I had to buy. I had to buy 500 meters, which is basically like 500 yards of fabric per color. So that was kind of like the non-negotiable starting point for my fabric. It was very innovative. They had to get the machine set up and running. So I understood that piece of it. In hindsight, I wish I would have only cut a portion of that fabric to start my website with and start my production with.
So when you say that, you mean only utilize a portion and leave the other just on a bolt? Like,
yes. My factory, had I asked, would have been fine to sit on maybe half of my fabric and actually take half of it into production. Now, with that would have come a higher first cost. The factory would have charged me because I wasn't sewing and cutting as many units, but I would have learned a lot more and been able to react faster. So being nimble and agile is super important when you're launching your brand. I would say that consider your first go-to-market strategy as kind of like a big test.
Yes.
So you want to make sure that you don't have all your dollars invested in the one thing that you think is going to be the big idea, because you just don't know what your consumer might give back to you. And it might not be to negate that idea, but there might be an even bigger idea you didn't even think of, which truly is what happened with my own personal brand.
Which you won't learn until you get the knowledge from that initial product. So
100%.
we're saying that from an assortment perspective, start small, sell that small thing and learn from it in a way that then you can expand, but also start small in the way of quantity.
Exactly. Exactly. I would think as someone who's been in this industry for 20 years, I would know better, right? But being on the side of launching my own personal product and at scale, I just kind of overshot it a bit. I decided to utilize all my fabric, where in hindsight, I should have known better. I should have known that that first launch was a test to learn and make adjustments. And so instead, I had to go book more fabric as I was learning. And then now we've added to our assortment because we have proven concept. But turns out it's not just about nursing tanks. I have a very large perimenopause and menopause audience that I wasn't servicing with that product right when I first launched, and it wasn't even on my radar. So those are the learnings that you might be surprised with, might be surprised about as you get into it. So I'm glad I started small. Again, I wish I would have actually had my production run be a little bit smaller to give me more agility, being more nimble. But there are ways to do that. You just have to make sure you're asking your factory the right questions.
Mm-hmm. The other thing that you can do when you start small is you can produce closer to home so that you can have a tighter reins on your product, or you can make that test concept really count. You can make something that maybe isn't 100% even. Maybe that's just a concept. Maybe you're trying to figure out where it goes from there. Or maybe it's just something where if you go overseas, your minimum is going to be 2,000 pieces, but maybe domestically you can make 50. So sure, your 50 pieces in the US are going to cost way more, double, probably more than double what they would cost somewhere else. But if you're only buying 50 versus 2,000, you're still saving money. I think people look at that one cost of the product and they think, well, I can get it for half. And I'm like, yes, you can, but you're also going to be sitting on a ton.
Yep.
And even if financially it works, like you just don't want to rush into something before you even know that proof of concept is going to work, because you might want to pivot.
Yeah. And maybe that first production run, maybe you're not propping up a website. Maybe you're not going through all your marketing with this item. Maybe you're still doing a larger test of the market, whether it's doing a pop-up shop or leaning on friends and family or finding a Facebook group and trying to promote your product that way, that you're still in that incubation period where you're trying to get real-time feedback so that you feel really good when you're going overseas and buying 2,000 units of something. Like, you've nailed it. You've had other people outside of just you yourself and maybe your friends and family that have tried or tested the product.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think there is opportunity to search domestically or find factories that are willing to work in small quantities, which they do exist. I have different factories for different customers for different reasons. And a lot of it is driven by minimums, to be honest. I have factories that are willing to do the 300 units a color because they want to get the bigger opportunity order. And then I have some that really won't even talk to you unless you're buying 2,000 a color. So they exist. It's finding the right factory for where your business is. And we're really trying to encourage you to start small, learn, and then chase your butt off when it works.
And I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but the ability to, when I say test, not just test from a sales perspective, but also test from a what do you like perspective. How are you building it? Or how are you communicating with the vendor? Are you producing something that's exactly what your dream is? And there are clients I've worked with who I've advised them to stay local or stay domestic and make like a couple pieces and make sure they're absolutely perfect. Make 10, make 20, make 50. Okay. Utilize that production run for all your marketing assets, utilize it for photography, get your website set up, then send the product somewhere else overseas to be made in a bigger way. But sometimes it's really hard when you're working overseas and you're one person and you're making one product and you're new to this to be that tactical with how the product's made. So if you can be tactical with how it's made on a smaller scale and then expand from there and have it made in a larger scale, you might get a better product in the long run.
And you can literally ship that perfect product that you made here in the USA to your factory overseas for them to basically copy what you've already done, the work you've already done. So it's a very legitimate way to source. I call it source and tweak sometimes, even if you find something existing in the market and you want to just make a few small changes to it. The factories love actually receiving samples to touch, feel, and see what you're really going for. So they want to execute to your vision. And no better way than for them to touch it and feel it and see it themselves for something you've already worked on here stateside.
And something I do quite often is I'll mock something up. So I'll either have a local seamstress or a local crafter or something create what I want on a 1, 2, 3 scale to be able to send overseas. But I guess my point on that was that I've done that too, so that I can put maybe 3 pieces, 4 pieces online and I can see what kind of response I get from customers.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And back to the financial implications too. I mean, it could math out that 50 units of a stateside item might equal 500 units of an overseas item, to be honest. But the point I think we're trying to make is that what you can learn with 50, you can then affect the 500, where if you bring 500 in and you start learning that it's not right, you still are sitting with 450 units of something that's just not right, and then to have to be trying to get through that inventory and push that while you're working on something else. So I think sometimes the math might lead you one way, but just make sure you're really pulling the triggers for the right reasons, that you're still trying to learn and get the best product out there. And be able to be nimble then and adjust as real customer feedback is coming at you.
And you mentioned being in the business for as long as you have been and kind of being like, oh, why didn't I know that? But I think that when you are the person on the other side, when it's your vision, when it's your passion, when it's like your heart, you're like, yes, this is amazing. Go all in. Take all my money. I'm going to make this. It's going to be huge. And so having that a person even to bounce that off of is helpful, because you're not making this product because you're not invested. You're making it because your heart's in it. And of course you can have an emotional reaction to what your next step's going to be.
Yeah. And it was truly, I had done testing in Facebook focus groups and the response was amazing, right? So I was so excited. I'm like, oh, this is going to sell so fast. But I totally underestimated the marketing side of starting a business, right? I mean, I went from 0 followers to where we are today. And so I just think I was so focused on the product piece and feeling so good about it, which, to be honest, I haven't made fit changes. I feel really, I did a lot of work pre.
But I also want to interject there to say that it's not that you spent money on your tank and short set and it wasn't going to sell. It will.
Yes.
It's more just that you learned that there is an other opening in the market that was as valuable.
Yes. And unfortunately, I had spent, quote unquote, used all my fabric on this one silhouette, where in hindsight, I could have taken the balance of that fabric and introduced more assortment based on what my customer was asking for.
So you get a time lag.
Yes.
I think I remember that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you were like, t-shirts are coming. And I was like, give me a t-shirt. I'm not nursing anymore.
Exactly. So again, learning. And now I'll tell you, go forward, that's how I'm running the business. And I am, to be very transparent, paying 50% more for every PJ that I make right now to sew less. But it is worth it for me to have the mobility, the flexibility to do that. So based on those learnings I had, going forward now, I'm still buying my 500 unit minimums per color, but I have chosen to pay 50% more for each pajama.
That's a lot.
To cut less. Because for me, I am still in a learning phase. I am still in a testing phase to figure out what the customer is responding to. So for me, it's more important to stretch my dollars that way, stretch my fabric, basically, inventory, across more assortment based on real-time feedback I'm getting from consumers. And also,
and I was going to say, you just got a huge hit last week.
I did.
And if you hadn't had open fabric sitting, that would have been a tough position.
Yeah. So, and my size selling is changing by the month. And as the demographic is adjusting for my product, I'm learning that I'm actually selling way more sizes in XL, 2X, 3X than I had originally planned, which is exciting because it's a size in the market that isn't being serviced well, right?
That's amazing.
So now I have fabric to go back and make adjustments to my size curves that I didn't have before. So the fact that I'm now able to call my factory and say, hey, I need 100 more units of this size, 50 more units of that size, and in the next 3 to 4 weeks, I'm going to get it. That's a big win for me.
That keeps you agile. And I think that that's another good point when it comes to starting small, is that enables flexibility, it enables agility, it enables you to take real-time feedback and act on it versus sitting in a warehouse full of boxes around you and being like, oh no.
And you will learn as you're working on your products, there are different lead times, they call it. The lead time is literally the amount of time it takes for your product to get made. And depending on what the item is, that lead time can chunk out. So for my pajamas, for example, I have a fabric lead time, which means how long it takes for my fabric mill to knit the fabric, put it on a roll, and then it has to get trucked to my factory, which also takes time. So there's a front end fabric lead time that is 60 days for me. That is a very, very long fabric lead time. And then I usually have about a 2-week transportation from the fabric mill to my factory. So now you're talking, you're talking 74 days to get my fabric from start to my factory. And then my factory itself needs about 30 days to sew. So, and then I have to transport it into the country, right? So I'm looking at roughly a 3 to 4 month lead time. And that's on an air model. That's me air freighting everything in.
Wow.
So if I'm not planning, if I'm not having some fabric available and ready to sit, and all of a sudden I sell out, thanks customers, I'll be back basically in 4 months.
Right.
So these are things you also need to think about as you start planning they're good problems to have. Selling out and needing more is good problems to have. But if you can be strategic about it, starting small, understanding what would it take, how long would it take to reorder, and are there any things your factory is willing to position for you to help cut that timeline down?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a big proponent of getting things on airplanes and getting them in too. I know, again, it is costly, but losing 60 days on the ocean right now when you're trying to launch something new, build it into your business model. Yeah. Build it into your profit margin that you're going to put things on an airplane and eat the cost for a while. Again, build it in. And then when one day, if you have the luxury to get on boat timing where you have an extra 60 days to plan things out, awesome. You've just dropped more margin to your bottom line.
Yeah, that's smart.
So,
and you can do that when you start small, scale smart.
Yes, 100%. So if you haven't heard it enough, big proponents of starting small, learning, and then be ready to, the fun is the growth, right? So like getting back in stock, chasing more inventory, prices just keep coming down as you do that. Like that's the fun ride.
You're learning about your customer.
Correct.
Your customer's learning about you and your brand and what to expect from you. So it's coming both ways where you're getting that brand recognition for what you're great at. You're also learning on your end. And by doing that, you'll build a brand that is recognizable and that is then long-term scalable.
Correct. So start small, scale smart. And we will see you back here for the next episode of The Sourcing Gals.